I should have seen the signs earlier. Hindsight makes you feel like an idiot, doesn't it? But when you're in love, you don't question the little things. You ignore them, explain them away. Stephanie and I had been married for 3.5 years. We weren't perfect, but I thought we were solid. We had inside jokes, lazy Sundays on the couch, and a shared dream of starting a family. At least I thought it was a shared dream. Looking back, I think the cracks started about 6 months before I left. She became distant. Not in the dramatic, obvious way you see in movies. Just small things. She stopped kissing me goodbye in the mornings. She started keeping her phone face down on the table. She'd take longer in the bathroom with it. "It's just work stress," she said when I asked. And I believed her. Then came the late nights. Unexplained ones. Work happy hours that stretched till midnight. "You know how my boss is," she'd say, rolling her eyes. Again, I believed her. I was an idiot. It wasn't until one night, one stupid, insignificant night, that something snapped. I was doing laundry, folding her favorite sweater, when I found a receipt in the pocket. A restaurant I'd never heard of. 2 people. Candlelit dinner. The time? 9:47 p.m. She was supposed to be at work that night. My stomach nodded. Could have been innocent, right? A work dinner? A client meeting? But then I saw the note scribbled on the back. A heart. Just a simple, careless little heart. I stared at it for way too long. That's when I knew. I didn't want to know, but I did. And that's when everything started unraveling. I told myself I was overreacting. That little voice in my head, probably the same one that ignored all the red flags before, kept whispering, "It's just a heart. Maybe it's nothing." But it wasn't nothing. That night, Stephanie came home late again. I heard her keys jingle as she stepped inside, the soft rustling of her coat as she hung it up. I was sitting on the couch, my heart hammering, the receipt burning a hole in my pocket. She walked in, kicked off her heels, and sighed. "God, what a day," she muttered, heading straight for the kitchen. I watched her, studied her. How easy it was for her to pretend. She poured herself a glass of wine like nothing was wrong, like she wasn't lying to my face. I could have confronted her then, slammed the receipt onto the counter and demanded an explanation. But something in me hesitated. Maybe I wasn't ready to hear the lies. Maybe I wanted proof, real proof, before I set fire to the life we'd built. So I didn't say anything. Not yet. Instead, I started paying attention. The next few weeks were torture. Every late night, every quick glance at her phone, every time she smiled at a text. I logged it all in my head. I started waking up at night and checking her phone while she slept. She had a password now, one I didn't know. That told me everything. Then, one night, the opportunity landed right in my lap. Stephanie was in the shower, her phone left on the nightstand. The screen lit up, and I caught a glimpse of a message preview. "Can't stop thinking about last night." My stomach dropped. The name on the message? Just an initial, J. My hands shook as I picked up her phone, but the screen locked before I could read more. I put it down just as I heard the water shut off. I had my answer. I just didn't know what to do with it yet. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, my mind replayed that message over and over. Can't stop thinking about last night. It wasn't just a suspicion anymore. It was real. I had to know who Jay was. The next morning, Stephanie acted normal, too normal. She kissed me on the cheek, asked if I wanted anything from the store, and walked out the door like nothing had changed, like she hadn't just been with someone else. I sat there for hours, staring at my coffee, my brain spinning. Confronting her wasn't enough. She'd lie, twist it, gaslight me into thinking I was paranoid. I needed undeniable proof. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went through our phone bill. Stephanie and I shared a plan, and it was easy to log in and check the call records. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the numbers. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, until I found it. One number stood out, over and over, late at night, early in the morning, long conversations. I copied it and ran a quick search, and my stomach dropped. It was Jason, my best friend, my best man at our wedding. I don't even remember standing up, but suddenly I was pacing, my fists clenched so hard my nails dug into my palms. Jason, of all people, I could have handled some random stranger, some faceless nobody. But this? I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Memories flooded back. Jason laughing at my jokes, slapping me on the back, telling me how lucky I was to have a woman like Stephanie. And Stephanie? She always acted distant around him when I was looking. But when she thought I wasn't, little smiles, quick glances. It had been right in front of me the whole time. I had the proof. Now I just had to decide what to do with it. I sat there, gripping my phone so hard my fingers ached. My heart pounded against my ribs, but my mind had gone eerily quiet. Just one thought repeated over and over. She's sleeping with Jason. I needed to hear it from her, to see her face when she realized she couldn't lie her way out of this. So I waited. Stephanie came home late again. I was sitting at the kitchen table when she walked in, tossing her bag onto the counter like she didn't have a care in the world. "Hey," she said casually, grabbing a water bottle from the fridge. "You okay? You look tired." I almost laughed. Tired? I was hanging on by a thread. I pulled my phone from my pocket and placed it on the table. The call log with Jason's number pulled up. Her eyes flicked to it. She froze. "Who's Jay?" I asked. My voice was too calm, too steady. For a split second, I saw something cross her face. Guilt, panic. Then, just as quickly, she smoothed it over. "Liar." She forced a chuckle. What are you talking about?" I leaned back in my chair, tapping the screen. "Jason, you've been calling and texting him at all hours. Care to explain?" Her mouth opened, then shut. Her eyes darted away, her mind scrambling for an excuse. He's been going through some stuff," she stammered. "He needed someone to talk to. You know how close we all are." I just stared at her. She swallowed hard, her hands twisting together. "Why are you even looking at my calls? That's such an invasion of privacy." There it was, the classic deflection. She was trying to turn it on me. I wasn't playing that game. "I saw the text, Stephanie." I let that sink in. The one where he said he can't stop thinking about last night. Silence. Her face drained of color. There it was, the truth written all over her expression. I didn't need to hear her say it. I already knew. But then she did something that caught me off guard. She sighed. Not panicked. Not apologetic. Just resigned. Like she was tired of pretending. "I didn't want you to find out like this," she muttered. That hit harder than I expected. She didn't want me to find out. Period. I clenched my jaw. "How long?" She didn't answer. "How long, Stephanie?" My voice came out sharper than I intended. Her eyes flicked up to meet mine, and for the first time, I saw the truth in them. "Almost a year," she whispered. "A year." I gripped the edge of the table, the room tilting. My best friend. My wife. For an entire damn year. Something inside me broke. I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. I needed air. I needed space. Stephanie reached for me. "Please, let's talk about this." I jerked away. "There's nothing to talk about." Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't care. I was done. I walked out the door, leaving her standing there. And I didn't look back. I didn't go back that night, or the next, or ever. I didn't even give her the satisfaction of a dramatic exit. No screaming match, no throwing things, no begging her to explain. I just left. I packed a bag while she was at work, grabbed the essentials, and walked out of the life we built like it never existed. And for a while, it felt like it hadn't. I went dark. No texts, no calls, no updates. I blocked her number, deleted our photos, erased every trace of her from my life. I didn't want to hear her excuses. I didn't want her tears. She made her choice, so I made mine. The divorce was clean-cut. No kids, no shared assets that weren't easy to split. She tried to reach out at first, through mutual friends, even through my parents. But I told everyone the same thing. I don't care what she has to say. And that was the end of it. Or so I thought. For a year I rebuilt. I moved to a new city, started fresh. Got a new job, made new friends. Hell, I even started dating again. Nothing serious, just enough to remind myself I wasn't broken beyond repair. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Until she found me. It happened on a Tuesday. I was leaving my usual coffee shop, earbuds in, barely paying attention to my surroundings. And then, hey! I froze. I knew that voice. Slowly, I turned around. And there she was, Stephanie. Looking different, but the same. Her hair was shorter, her face a little thinner. But those eyes, those same damn eyes, were locked onto mine like they hadn't just shattered me a year ago. My stomach twisted. How did you find me? My voice was cold. She hesitated, shifting on her feet. I asked around. I clenched my jaw. Asked around? Who the hell was still talking to her about me? I wanted to walk away, ignore her, but she beat me to it. I needed to see you, she rushed out, voice thick with something I didn't have the patience to decipher. Please, just give me a second. I didn't owe her a second, or a single damn thing. But against my better judgment, I stood there, waiting. Stephanie took a deep breath, like she was steadying herself, like she was the one who had been blindsided. I didn't say anything, just stood there, arms crossed, waiting. She looked up at me, searching my face for something. Anger, regret, maybe even nostalgia. I gave her nothing. I know I'm probably the last person you want to see, she started. You'd be right about that, I said flatly. She flinched but pushed on. I just needed to tell you that I'm sorry. I huffed a laugh, shaking my head. Now after a year? Don't do this, Stephanie. My voice was tired. You don't get to show up out of nowhere and ask for closure. Her eyes flickered with something. Guilt? Desperation? I didn't care. I'm not asking for closure, she said quickly. I wanted you to hear it from me. I regret everything. I hate myself for what I did to you. I tilted my head, studying her. That's funny. You didn't seem to hate yourself while you were screwing my best friend for a year. She winced like I'd slapped her. It wasn't like that. Oh, I let out a bitter laugh. Then what was it like, Stephanie? Enlighten me. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She had no excuse. I exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand over my jaw. What do you want from me? Forgiveness? A chance to rewrite history? She swallowed. I just wanted to see you, to know if you're okay. I stared at her. Was she serious? You don't get to care about that, I said quietly. You don't get to come back and check in like I'm some old friend you lost touch with. Her eyes filled with tears, but I wasn't falling for it. Not this time. She reached into her bag, pulling out an envelope. My gut twisted. I know I don't deserve anything from you, she whispered. But please, just read this. When you're ready. I looked at the envelope, then back at her. For a long moment, I debated tossing it in the nearest trash can. But some sick part of me wanted to know. So I took it. Not for her. For me. I didn't open it right away. I told myself I didn't care. That whatever Stephanie had to say wasn't worth my time. But the damn thing sat on my counter for 2 days, staring at me every time I walked by. I caved on the third night. With a deep breath, I ripped it open, half expecting some long, rambling apology. Instead, a single sheet of paper slipped out. And as I read the first few lines, my blood ran cold. Dear Daniel, I know you don't owe me anything, not even your time. And I don't expect you to believe me when I say that what I did to you haunts me every single day. But I need you to know the truth. The whole truth. I didn't cheat on you just because I was bored or because our marriage wasn't enough. Jason, he wasn't just my lover. He was my mistake. A mistake I made before we even got married. I found out after our wedding. I tried to bury it, to pretend it didn't happen. But Jason wouldn't let me. He knew and he used it. What I'm trying to say is, I didn't just betray you. I lied about something much worse. Our child, our son, he isn't yours. I'm so sorry. I reread the words 3 times, my brain refusing to process them. Our son? We didn't have a kid. Unless, my breath caught in my throat. 3 months into our marriage, Stephanie had been pregnant. It had been unexpected, but I was thrilled. I'd always wanted a family, a son, a little version of me, except he wasn't mine. I felt sick. My hands shook as I gripped the letter, my pulse pounding in my ears. She had let me believe for years. Let me dream about that child. The one that was his. Jason's. The room spun. I needed air. Needed something to punch, to break. I had already lost my wife, my best friend, my home. And now I realized I had lost a son I never even had. I don't remember how long I stood there, staring at the letter. Time stopped meaning anything. My mind was an empty void except for one single, repeating thought. She knew. She always knew. Stephanie had lied to me every single day of our marriage. Every time she let me rest my hand on her stomach, dreaming of our future. Every time she let me hold his child, thinking he was mine. And Jason had known too. I felt something inside me snap. The kind of break that doesn't heal. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and did something I swore I never would. I unblocked Stephanie. I didn't want a text. I didn't want a conversation. I wanted answers. She picked up after 2 rings. "Daniel," she breathed, like she'd been waiting. "Who else knows?" My voice came out hoarse, raw. Silence. "Stephanie," she exhaled shakily. "No one? Not even Jason?" Another pause. Then softer. "He always suspected. But I never told him for sure." I shut my eyes. She was still lying. Still twisting the truth. My jaw clenched so hard it ached. "Why are you telling me this now?" She hesitated. "Because he left." That made me pause. "What? Jason?" Her voice wavered. "He walked out on us. Me and the baby." My stomach turned. "So now you come to me?" My laugh was hollow, bitter. "What? You think I'll just step in and raise his kid because he bailed?" No, I wanted you to know the truth. I owed you that." I barked out a laugh. "You owed me that years ago." "I know," she whispered. "I know." For a second, the weight of it all settled between us. The years of love, the betrayal, the child that was never mine. I took a slow breath, gripping my knee to ground myself. "I want nothing to do with you. Or him. Daniel, please." I hung up, and for the first time in a year, I felt truly, completely done. Hanging up should have felt like closure, like the final nail in the coffin of a life that wasn't mine anymore. But instead, I sat there, staring at my phone, my chest tight with something I couldn't name. Not regret, not sadness, just emptiness. I had given this woman everything. My trust, my love, my future, and she had burned it all to the ground. And now she was standing in the ashes, looking for a hand to pull her out. Not mine. Never again. I blocked her number again. Then Jason's, just in case. Hell, I went through and removed every last connection to my old life. Anyone who still spoke to them, anyone who could pass messages along. I erased them all. I wouldn't be her backup plan. I wouldn't be his safety net. And I sure as hell wouldn't be a father to the child of the man who betrayed me. The next morning, I woke up to an email from her. For a second, I debated deleting it without reading. But some dark, masochistic part of me clicked. It was short. "Daniel, I understand. I won't contact you again. I just want you to know. I do love you. I always have. I'm sorry I ruined everything. Stephanie." I sat back, staring at the screen. Love? No. Love doesn't do what she did. Love doesn't betray, lie, destroy. Stephanie loved the version of me who didn't know the truth. The man she could manipulate, could string along while she kept her secrets. And that man? He didn't exist anymore. I hovered over the email for a moment before hitting delete. Then, I shut my laptop, stood up, and walked out the door, toward a life that was finally mine.